You are listening to an exclusive interview on Bass Musician Magazine. The interview starts now.
Hey everybody, Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of chatting with bassist, vocalist, songwriter, and arranger, Nate Sabat.
Yes. Hello, Raul, and hello, everyone. Thanks so much for having me
I
on.
always like to start kind of from the beginning. Nate, how did you get started in music and then on bass?
Yeah, I got started on music through choral music, actually. So I grew up in New York City, and there's an excellent chorus there called the Young People's Chorus of New York City. And the artistic director is Francisco Nunez. He's won a MacArthur for his work with the chorus and does a great job of bringing people from all over the city together, kids from all over the city together to sing. So when I was I was like 12 when I started singing in that choir. That was really the first thing that I loved doing, so I kind of a singer first. But short after that, I started picking up the bass. It was like right after that. Electric bass first. I don't know how many of you guys out there know Fountains of Wayne. Familiar with Stacy's Mom, obviously, is like their big hit from the early 2000s. But there was another song of theirs that had this sweet like bass riff in the down verse. And like that got me into starting to play bass. I heard that and I was like, I want to do that, So I wasn't like one of those guitar players who like came to the bass,
Yeah.
Which I'm happy about.
And you really started, if I recall correctly, kind of hitting it hard from high school.
Yeah, definitely. I did start playing a lot more electric and then upright bass in high school. I went to LaGuardia High School, near Lincoln Center. It's known for like being the Fame school from the movie Fame, though it's not like as crazy as that in real life. And I was a vocal major there, but was playing bass. I played bass in an indie rock band called the Beach Arabs, and we were like playing around a lot of like underground clubs around the city, but then also started taking upright lessons with this jazz bass player, Scott Lee. He was really, really great. I really needed a teacher for upright bass. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever actually taken an electric bass lesson in my life, but upright was, well, yeah, just it's a bigger learning curve maybe to get your hands around it. So Scott was a big help. So yeah, high school was a lot of bass playing in high school for sure.
I agree. And with upright, I think that's probably the reason that you see a lot of players don't double up to be able to play both. I think there's very few that do it well, like John Patitucci or Avishai Cohen. Some of these guys come to mind. Of course, Esperanza Spalding.
Right.
But I am one that, like, if you give me an upright, I'm going to be very lost.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's funny. I mean, I don't really have any extended technique abilities on the electric bass. Like watching Victor Wooten or something, or like obviously old Jocko videos is like, oh, that's incredible. But my heart goes a bit more in the direction of the upright, like the Edgar and the John Patitucci, like that kind of thing. Christian McBride, like exploring that kind of sound. Rabath, Francois Rabath, like all the stuff the upright bass can do is what I'm like kind of interested in pursuing long term.
Gotcha. Now, From high school, you went on to Berkeley.
Yeah. I went to Berkeley starting in 2012, and then I did 3 years there, going through 2015. And so I switched from being a vocal principal at LaGuardia to being an upright player at Berkeley. So that was kind of the main transition when I started focusing more on upright. Didn't play a ton of like jazz at school. I always kind of tell people that I kind of circumvented the whole jazz program at Berkeley. I did more like kind of everything else. Like I was working with singer-songwriters, played a lot of folk and bluegrass music, played in this ensemble called Berkeley World Strings, like a string orchestra. So just kind of did a bunch of other music at Berkeley. And I'm glad I did. I think I became more in demand as a player because I was one of the few upright players not really focused on jazz.
Well, and you mentioned bluegrass, that right now you are currently playing with the band Mile 12, which is bluegrass/Americana music.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, we kind of call ourselves like progressive bluegrass with with traditional elements. It's kind of hard to pin it, I guess. But yeah, in a set, you'll see everything from like a really traditional bluegrass song to something that's like completely Americana, like halftime groove, like very not bluegrass. So yeah, that's kind of what we're about.
Gotcha. And you guys are out of Boston, not exactly where I would expect bluegrass to be coming from.
Totally. I know. Everyone's surprised, man. It's actually, in big thanks to schools like Berkeley and New England Conservatory, they bring a lot of young acoustic musicians to Boston, kind of it's a really fertile kind of like almost like a breeding ground for like young acoustic musicians. Just tons of bands and artists have gotten our start here. And, the scene is relatively young overall. A lot of people end up moving to Nashville or moving to New York. So a lot of bands get their start in Boston, like we did.
Very nice. And the exciting news, just a couple of weeks ago, you guys released album City on a Hill.
Yeah, definitely. City on a Hill, man. It's our second full-length release. We're all really proud of this one. We feel like there's kind of an overarching theme. A lot of the songwriting is focused on people who are struggling, who are facing hard times, and kind of the way that they're dealing with it and the way that they're coping through it. So City on a Hill is a reference to America and to Boston as well. So it kind of has this tie to the band. It's a bit more like a concept album than what we've done in the past, which I always like to see,
I guess historically, if you look back, music has been so often the voice of our times where, you think, particularly things that like the Vietnam era come to mind, the kind of music, the Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, things making the statement. It so often says what people are feeling and thinking, but haven't managed to say.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're trying to at least be a part of that conversation with this album. One thing that we focus on too, Bluegrass is a really wide-ranging audience politically. Mm-hmm. Like it's all over the spectrum, right? So like we really are trying to focus on like singular stories of each of these characters in the songs. We're not trying to overly politicize anything, but we think that a good story and a powerful story can potentially change hearts and minds, or at least make people think in a different way. So that's kind of one way that we've been able to make our music accessible to everyone.
Nice. And
yes.
Getting it to people, I understand you guys have a tour, kind of have already started a tour, but are continuing on.
Definitely, yes. Our album release tour kind of started with our UK tour in March. The record hadn't been released yet, but we had it for sale and we were playing all the tracks off of it. It was released on the 29th of March and we've been hitting it hard. Our next long tour is around Merlefest, which is a festival in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So we're doing some dates before that. We're going to do a release show at the Station Inn in Nashville. And then we're working our way up to the Midwest for the first time. We're opening up the Del McCoury Band, which is our super famous bluegrass band, opening up for them in Chicago. So yeah, we have a bunch of cool stuff coming up.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and people can find our tour dates at mile12bluegrass.com. So if anyone's interested in checking it out, if you haven't heard bluegrass before live or anything, it's always a cool experience.
Totally. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, because what gives you your sound, your voice, is your instruments and gear. Tell us a little bit about what you're using.
Definitely. So the upright I'm playing is a new standard. They're instruments that are made in Germany and then they're kind of distributed in America through Connecticut. And it's a 7/8 space. It's a Ruggieri model. I just got it this Thanksgiving, so it's a pretty new instrument. I think it was built in 2017. Yeah, I've been loving it so far. My setup guy is this great guy named Jed Kriegel here in Boston. Mm-hmm. He does fantastic work. He put a removable neck on it for me. He put an extension on it. Full setup. The thing is like a tank. I'm loving it. Yeah, it's not like, it's insured. If it gets damaged, it's like it's a new instrument. It's not like it's a priceless work of art from like 1840 or anything. So in a way, that's kind of the thing I need is just something that's durable. Yeah, there's a plywood back on it and carved top and sides. So I just need something that is going to hold up in flight and around the world and the country. Yeah.
How are you amplifying? I know that it's an acoustic instrument, but
definitely amplifying. So typically on a Mile 12 gig, I'm running through a Grace Felix preamp. They become really, really popular in the acoustic world on like numerous instruments. They're out of Colorado. It's a DI and a mic blend. So I'm using a Realist Lifeline pickup and a Audio-Technica 350 clip-on mic. So blending those two into the Grace DI, it's getting a really, really nice, like natural acoustic sound. Yeah. And then every now and again, I have the luck of bringing my Aguilar amp on the road. Just received an endorsement from them, so really happy to be working with Aguilar. I use a Tonehammer 500 head and SL112 cab. Yeah, just picked it up 3 months ago, so I'm excited to use it more and more on the road.
Nice. I know that they have gone through the effort to make things a little more lightweight and manageable as well, which...
SL, I don't know if SL stands for super light, but I think it might. because it definitely is super light. Yeah, it's like 20 pounds or something like that. It's just like, and the head is also super light, so much easier to transport for sure, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Is there anything else that is critical for your sound?
I use this is getting a little bit more into the upright territory, but I use a Reed Hudson bow, which I love. He's a maker, actually from your neck of the woods. He's from British Columbia,
okay,
and he's a great bow maker. And I was lucky enough to buy a bow from another bass player at ISB last year in Ithaca. But yeah, so I was lucky enough to find that. So that Reed Hudson bow is a big part of my bow sound. Yeah. I mean, that's my entire bow sound.
And moving along, looking ahead, I know there's so much happening with City on a Hill and the tour, but more often than not, musicians are thinking, kind of projecting. What are the plans for the future?
Yeah, with Mile 12?
Well, both Mile 12 and yourself, because I know you teach as well, don't you?
Definitely, yeah. As far as Mile 12, like we're going to ride out this album for sure. We're probably not going to record again until late next year is the general plan. Though we might end up putting out some traditional bluegrass out there, kind of like as an EP or as a single format. But yeah, just a lot of touring mostly with Mile 12. For myself, I'm actually moving back to New York in June. I'm really looking forward to that. So I spent the first 18 years of my life there, but haven't been there as an adult. So that'll be really exciting. And I know there's just so many musicians I know down there, and people I want to play with and people I want to meet. Would love to start working more when I'm off the road with Mile 12. Would love to start working more in New York. And I also, recently released a debut EP under my own name that I would love to get out there more and play with musicians down there. So, that's mostly it. I mean, just continuing to play as much as I can.
Gotcha. And if people want to stay on top of what you particularly do,
NateSabat.com, you got it. Yeah. Yep, you can find pretty much everything that's going on there. Have my calendar for Mile 12 and for myself, and bio and discography and everything. So definitely check it out.
Got you. And then, of course, we won't forget mile12bluegrass.com for tour dates.
Yep.
Because you guys, as I looked, you're going to be even up in our neck of the woods in the Great Northwest.
Yeah,
around the summertime.
June. Yeah, so we're playing at a festival. I think it's like Wenatchee River is the name of the festival. It's up in eastern Washington. Yeah. Or not even eastern, maybe. What would you call 2 hours east of Seattle?
Kind of central to eastern.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's definitely not the coast. But we'll be playing a house concert in Portland actually, so maybe we'll see you there, man.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. And then we'll be in Seattle as well. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Nate, we appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule, folks. Make sure you check out whatever Nate's doing, and of course Mile 12, some very tasty bluegrass. Again, got a lot of interesting variety and vocals and the works. You've seen him here. Nate, I'm trying to not mutilate your name. Sabat?
No, Sabat, you nailed it. Rhymes with rabbit.
Finally.
Tell people it rhymes with rabbit.
There we go. On Bass Musician Magazine.
Thanks for basing out with us here on BassMusicianMagazine.com.